Chapter 4, Section 3, writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. This will be the last section we cover in Chapter 4. We're not going to take a quiz or a test, but you will see parallel and perpendicular lines in geometry. And so we've got to kind of introduce you to it before you see it next year. Okay? What do we know about parallel lines?
They're parallel.
What does that mean?
They never touch.
Yeah, they never intersect. They can be going in any two directions, right? But they're going to be going in that same direction forever and ever and ever and never intersect.
They have to.
Does everyone understand that?
Beside each other.
They can be far away from each other.
Well, like I'm saying,
They just,
there has to be another one, right?
yeah. So two lines that'll never intersect. Okay? Do we know anything else about parallel lines, or is that it?
They're mainly.
That's okay if that's it.
That's it.
That's kind of what I expected, honestly. What do we know about perpendicular lines?
They're perpendicular.
Yeah, I'm asking, what does that mean?
They're crossing,
No idea.
right? They cross.
How are they crossing? They cross in a specific way.
They're crossing perpendicular.
Say it again.
90-degree angles.
Yes, perpendicular lines cross to form 90-degree angles, right angles. Okay? Yeah. So not just any intersecting lines are perpendicular. They have to be intersecting and creating right angles in order for them to be perpendicular. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let's get into it. I need you to write this down.
Out of it.
The first sentence is what we just talked about. Two lines in the same plane that never intersect are parallel lines. The lines that are never going to intersect each other. The next sentence is mainly what I want you to write down. Two distinct non-vertical lines are parallel if and only if they have the same slope. Yes.
Is it an assignment after this, or is it?
Yes. Yeah. You need to know that parallel lines have the same slope. Two distinct non-vertical lines are parallel if and only if they have the same slope. Make sure you have that written down. All vertical lines are parallel to each other. Are there any questions about that? If you think about it, it makes sense, right? There are two lines that are never going to intersect, so they're rising and running at the same rate, meaning they're never going to intersect with each other. Any questions about that? So parallel lines have what kind of slopes? What?
The same one.
Same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. You need to know that. We okay with that?
Yeah.
Can I move on?
No.
Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds. All right, let's move on. Example 1. Determine which of the lines, if any, are parallel. So, you could just try to guess, but we now have a method to determine if lines are for sure parallel or not. So what do you think I'm going to have to do with all three of these lines before I determine anything?
Check the slope.
Find all of their slopes. Which, if any of the lines have the same slope, then I know they're for sure parallel to each other. Does that make sense? So, let's find the slope of line A. There's multiple ways to find slope. We can use our triangle. The height of the triangle is the rise. The width of the triangle is the run. How tall is my triangle here? How tall is my triangle on A? 1. It's 1 unit tall.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's my rise. The width of the triangle is my run. How wide's the triangle?
5.
5. Everyone see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going downhill from left to right, so would that be positive or negative? Negative. That's one way to find my slope. I could also use my slope formula of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I would get the same answer. 2 minus 3, 1 plus 4 gives me negative 1/5. Whichever way you prefer to find the slope, use that method. Okay? Let's find the slope of line B. hold on.
Negative.
I'm glad you guys know how to do it, but I'm going to walk you guys through it. Okay? How tall is my triangle here on line B?
1.
1 unit. How wide is my triangle? 1,
Negative
2, 3, 4.
Negative 4.
It's going downhill from left to right, so is my slope a positive or negative number?
Negative.
Negative. Once again, you could have done y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I get negative 1/4. Any questions on how I found the slope on line B? And line C. Once again, find the slope. How tall is my triangle?
Is 1.
1.
Tall.
That's my rise. How wide is my triangle?
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's what I do.
That's the width of my triangle. It's going downhill from left to right. So is that going to be a positive or negative slope?
Negative.
Negative. Once again, negative 5 plus 4 over 2 plus 3 gives me negative 1/5. However you want to find the slope, given your graph, use that method. Now I found all the slopes of all my lines. Now I can compare them. Do any of my lines have the same slope?
A and C.
A and C. Does everyone see that? So what can I say of lines A and C?
They're parallel.
They're parallel. Lines
A and C.
A and C are parallel. That's how I would answer the question on example 1. Or the statement, I should say. Any questions on example 1?
No.
We understand that parallel lines have the same slope.
Yes.
Perfect. Let's move on. Example 2. Write an equation of the line that passes through 5, negative 4, and is parallel to the line y equals 2x plus 3. Write an equation of the line that passes through 5, negative 4, and is parallel to the line y equals 2x plus 3. And let's just go ahead and assume it wants it in slope-intercept form. Okay, assuming, well, first off, what is slope-intercept form?
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b. So we want our answer in this form. What 2 things do I need to write an equation straight into this form?
You're going to need the slope.
Slope
You're going to need the y-intercept.
and a y-intercept. Do I have my slope, or do I know what my slope is going to be? Do I know what my slope's going to be? What does it tell me about my line compared to this line? It needs to be what? What's that word right there? Parallel. So, the 2 slopes need to be, parallel lines have what kind of slopes?
Same.
The same. So, what's the slope of this line that my line has to be parallel to? 2. Y equals mx plus b, right? Slope of this line is 2. If my line has to be parallel to that line, what's the slope of my line going to be? 2. Everyone see how we got our slope here? Am I just given a y-intercept right off the bat for my line?
No.
I'm not. How would I know if it was a y-intercept?
It would have a 0.
Yeah, if the x value of my ordered pair is 0, then I know that's my y-intercept. Does that make sense? So I'm not given the y-intercept here. So do you guys remember when we had those 2 methods on how we set up an equation before the break? We could either use, does anyone remember? Point slope form or slope intercept form to find our y-intercept. We can use either one of those forms. I'll show you both. I have a point and I have a slope, correct? So I could plug into point slope form and then convert to slope intercept form. So, what would this look like plugging into point slope form? Anyone? Anyone remember how we plug into point slope form? y1 is the y value for my ordered pair. What's the y value for my ordered pair here? -4. So if I'm doing y minus -4, it would be y plus 4. What do we say our slope was? 2. The x1 is the x value for my ordered pair. So what's the x value here? So x minus 5. Everyone okay plugging into point slope form like that? We want our answer in slope intercept form. So now I'm going to convert to slope intercept. What would be my first step to do that? How would I get y by itself? Would be the first step in order to do that? Not yet. I can do something to simplify a little bit before I do that. On the right side of the equation, got a number outside the parentheses. What would I do with that? Distribute. 2 times x. 2x. 2 times -5. -10. Now, how would I get y by itself? Now I'm going to subtract 4. -10 minus 4. -14. So here's my equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals 2x minus 14. The other method I could use would be using slope-intercept form to find my missing y-intercept. Does anyone remember how we did it this way? Okay. I can plug values in for y, m, and x from my ordered pair and my slope. So what's the y value for my ordered pair? The y value for my ordered pair.
-4.
-4 equals, what's my slope?
2.
2 times, what's the x value for my ordered pair? 5. I'm looking for the y-intercept, so I'm going to leave that as b. And now I can solve this equation for b, and I'll have my y-intercept, if you're using this method. 2 times 5? 10. How would I get b by itself? Subtract 10. -4 minus 10 gives me -14. So that gave me my y-intercept. So if I'm using this method, I now have a slope. I now have a y-intercept. So I can plug both of those in to my slope-intercept form. We get the same answer. So pick whichever method you like best, just like I said last semester when we were talking about 4.1 and 4.2. Pick which method you like best and stick with that method. Okay? Any questions on example 2 here? All right. So parallel lines have the same slope. Let's talk about perpendicular lines here. We already talked about this a little bit. 2 lines in the same plane that intersect to form right angles, 90-degree angles, are perpendicular lines. You need to write this next sentence down. Non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if their slopes are, the book says negative reciprocals. I like to say opposite reciprocals. So you're going to hear me saying it as opposite reciprocals. They're opposite reciprocals of each other. So you need to have that sentence written down. Non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if their slopes are opposite reciprocals. The word opposite is talking about the sign in front of your slope. What's the opposite of positive?
Negative.
Negative. What's the opposite of negative?
Positive.
Positive. So that's what opposite's referring to. Does anyone know what reciprocal means? A reciprocal is when you flip your fraction. The numerator becomes the denominator. The denominator becomes the numerator. So opposite reciprocal. Change the sign, flip the fraction. Okay? So let's say I've got a line that has a slope of 2/3. And I asked you what would be the slope of a line that is perpendicular to this line. So you'd have to find the opposite reciprocal. This is positive 2/3. What's the opposite of positive?
Negative.
Negative. What's 2/3 as a reciprocal?
Negative 3/2.
Yep. So the opposite reciprocal of positive 2/3 would be negative 3/2. Change the sign, flip the fraction. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Let me give you another one. 7/4. If I wanted you to give me the opposite reciprocal of this, what's the opposite of positive?
Negative.
Negative. What's the reciprocal of 7/4?
Negative 4/2.
So the opposite reciprocal of 7/4 is negative 4/7. Does that make sense? Opposite reciprocals. What if I gave you negative 1/3? And I wanted you to give me the opposite reciprocal of this. What would that be?
Positive 3 or positive 3.
Yep. It'd become, or opposite of negative is positive. 1/3 would become 3/1, which is just 3. So the opposite reciprocal of negative 1/3 is positive 3. Does that make sense? Last example here. If I gave you negative 4, and I wanted the opposite reciprocal of that. What's the opposite of negative? Positive. What's 4 as a fraction? 4/1. So if I flip that, I get 1/4. So the opposite reciprocal of negative 4 is positive 1/4. Does everyone understand what I mean when I say opposite reciprocal now? If you need to, write this on your paper. Change the sign, flip the fraction. If you need to write that down, if that'll help you remember it, write it down. Change the sign, flip the fraction. Vertical lines are perpendicular to horizontal lines. That's just a given. A vertical line is going to create 90-degree angles with a horizontal line. Okay? So any questions on what makes two lines perpendicular? Perpendicular lines have what kind of slopes? Opposite reciprocals. Very good. Can I move on? All right. Determine which of the lines, if any, are parallel or perpendicular. Here I'm just given equations of my lines. What form do I want the equations to be in to easily identify my slopes? It's the main form we've talked about most of the year. Yeah, slope-intercept form, right? Y equals mx plus b. I want my equations in that form to easily identify my slopes. I want to identify my slopes so I can tell if the lines are perpendicular, parallel, or neither. So line A, is that already in slope-intercept form for me? Yes, it is. So I don't have to do any work here. I just got to identify my slope. What's the slope on line A? 4. It's the number being multiplied by x. If you want to put 4/1, because you know you're going to be looking for opposite reciprocals, go for it. Okay, line B. X plus 4y equals 3. Is that in slope-intercept form? Yes or no?
No.
It is not. How do I get an equation in slope-intercept form? What am I solving for? Trying to get y by itself, right? Trying to isolate y on one side of the equation. What would be my first step on line B to get y by itself?
Subtract x.
Yep, subtract x. Can I combine a 3 minus x? Are they like terms? No, so how would I write that?
Negative 3x.
A negative 3x.
3x.
3 minus x.
3 minus x. I'm going to put negative x plus 3. I like to write the x first just because of slope-intercept form. If you put 3 minus x, though, you're not wrong. Okay? As long as you can identify that the slope will be in front of your x after you get y by itself. Next step to get y by itself.
Divide by 4.
Yep, divide both sides by 4. On the right, what gets divided by 4?
Everything.
Every term. This is like a negative 1x being divided by 4. So that would just become negative 1/4 x plus 3/4. So if you had it as 3 minus x, you would get 3/4 minus 1/4 x. Is this now slope-intercept form?
Yes.
Yes, it is. What's the slope of this line?
Negative 1 over 4.
Yep, it's the number being multiplied by x when it's in slope-intercept form. So that'd be negative 1/4. Questions on how I found the slope on B? Got to find the slope of line C so I can compare all of my lines. How would I get y by itself?
Minus 2 plus 2x.
Add 2x. Negative 8y equals, can I combine a 16 plus 2x?
Yeah.
Nope, they're not like terms. So how would I write it?
Plus x.
Hmm?
Plus 2x. The 2x is still big, right?
Right. 2x plus 16.
That's what
Once again, if you put 16 plus 2x, that's perfectly fine. Last step to get y by itself.
Divide by negative 8.
Divide by negative 8. Every term gets divided by negative 8. What would 2 over negative 8 reduce to? What are both 2 and 8 both divisible by?
2,
2. 2 divided by 2.
1,
1. 8 divided by 2.
4.
That'd be negative 1/4 x. 16 divided by negative 8 gives me negative 2. This is now slope-intercept form. What number is being multiplied by x? What number is my slope?
Negative 1 over 4.
Negative 1/4. Okay? Any questions on how I found any of my slopes here? Okay, I found all my slopes. Now I need to start comparing them to see which of the lines, if any, are parallel or perpendicular. Parallel lines, once again, have what kind of slopes?
The same.
Same slopes. Perpendicular lines have what kind of slopes?
Opposite and reciprocal.
Opposite reciprocal slopes. So, let's talk about parallel first. Do any of my lines have the same slope here?
Yeah.
Which
B
ones?
and C.
B and C. So what can I say about lines B and C?
They're parallel.
They're parallel. Lines B and C are parallel. Do I have any other two lines that have the same slope? No. So that's all my sets of parallel lines. You okay with that? Let's talk about perpendicular now. Do I have any sets of line or any lines that have opposite reciprocal slopes?
Yeah.
What's perpendicular to what?
A and B and then A and C.
Yep, line A is perpendicular to line B because they have opposite reciprocal slopes. Line A is also perpendicular to line C because once again, they also have opposite reciprocal slopes. So I'd say lines A and B are, and I'm just going to put perp, and lines A and C are perp, meaning perpendicular. Any other sets of perpendicular lines here? Nope. I'm done identifying the parallel and perpendicular lines. Any questions how we did that?
No.
So parallel, perpendicular lines really just rely on the slope of your lines. Okay? Can I move on to my last example? It's very similar to our example 2. It's just dealing with a line that's perpendicular to our line now. Write an equation of the line that passes through negative 3, 1, and is perpendicular to the line y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Still want our answer in slope-intercept form. Any ideas here? Well, you can use one of two methods, right? I'll show you both. You want me to just go through them pretty quick?
Yes, please.
Okay. Use point slope form first. First off, I need to identify the slope that I'm going to be using. If my line is going to be perpendicular to this line, what does that mean my slope is going to be?
-2.
There you go. I know my slope has to be the opposite reciprocal of this line's slope. What's the slope of this line? 1/2. Opposite of positive is negative. Reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1, which is just -2. There's my slope. That's how we got what we got. Any questions how I identified my slope here? Now I'm just using the ordered pair and the slope to plug into point slope. So y minus y value from the ordered pair is 1 equals my slope's -2 times x minus -3, which would be x plus 3. Any questions on how I plugged in? Now I'm going to distribute. Y minus 1 equals -2x minus 6. Add 1 to both sides to get y by itself. Y equals -2x minus 5. Any questions on my first method here using point slope form? Other method, using slope-intercept form to find your missing y-intercept. Y value from the ordered pair is 1. Slope is -2. X value from the ordered pair is -3. I'm trying to find B, the y-intercept. -2 times -3 is +6. To get B by itself, I subtract 6 from both sides. B equals -5. If I'm using this form, I now have a slope, I now have a y-intercept. I can plug those in for M and B. Do we get the same answer? Yes, we do. Either method will work, as long as you're plugging in correctly and doing the math correctly. Pick whichever one you like best. They take about the same amount of time, same amount of work. Questions on example 4? How are we feeling about parallel perpendicular lines?
Great.
Great? Some of us so, maybe some get a little better with some practice. Here's your assignment. Pages 195 through 196, numbers 2 through 30, evens. Pages 195 through 196, numbers 2 through 30, evens. Make sure you get this written down. Make sure you get this written down. Make sure you get this written down. Make sure you get the correct heading on your paper for your assignment. Name, date, period, assignment in the upper right-hand corner. This will be due Monday, January 7th on Canvas. Actually, the 8th. Monday, January 8th. Any questions about the notes before I end my recording?